You're listening to the Mind Manual Podcast, episode 46, The Transformation to be Found Through Trauma. If you want a particular result in your life, but you're unable to get it, tune in to start training your brain and expanding your emotional intelligence to unlock the most powerful and underutilized performance tool that we have. It's the most important work you could do because it affects every area of your life. In this episode, we're going to catch up with someone who has managed to turn her experience of enduring trauma and sexual abuse as a young girl and the inevitable fallout from that into a journey of profound resilience and transformation. This quest has led her to become an EFT practitioner and counsellor with over 15 years of experience working nationally in Australia and internationally at rehabilitation centres, health retreats, and in private practice. Jackie Durnin is the visionary founder of Hinterland Health Retreat, a world-first rehabilitation facility that combines revolutionary neuro-technology with leading holistic therapies to offer a truly personalised, transformative experience. Driven by her passion for helping others heal and truly thrive, Jackie has created a health retreat unlike any other. Her discovery of advanced neurotechnology, previously unavailable outside the US, when combined with traditional mind and body therapies, results in significant, lasting transformations for individuals. We opened the door on a chat that we had for you to hear a bit about her story and the great places where recovery through trauma can lead you to when you become open and curious and determined to transform it into something great. Hope you enjoy it. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Very excited.
Yeah. And so just from, a little bit of background reading on what you've done, there's two big significant events, I guess, that's happening for you this year. One is the Hinterland Health Centre or Retreat that you're opening up on the Sunshine Coast, which is very exciting. But the other is that you mentioned the other day that you were sort of coming out a bit.
Yeah.
Which I guess ties into, the other event. They are connected. What I'm trying to do here on the podcast is open up the conversations, the therapeutic conversations and a little insight into people's journey with, different issues that come up from time to time. None of us are getting out of here alive. And, there's always going to be the 50-50 of life where, there's good, there's bad. It's the dichotomy of life where we have the equal and opposite that presents itself in this world of relativity that we live in. You've got quite the journey as well, where you've mentioned that, you're coming out with your thing. And then I guess that's inevitably has led you down a particular journey that has resulted in this Hinterland Health Retreat. So did you want to just sort of take us along a bit of how it began and then what's evolved and come out of all of that in your journey?
Yeah. So going to the coming out, I was sexually abused as a child. And as you can hear from my accent, I was born in Ireland. So it wasn't until I came to Australia that I would start to really look into any sort of therapy to do with that. And it took me a couple of years. I think, I was out here just being a backpacker and, in my early 20s and drinking. But then I would be the sad drunk because there was just a lot of trauma that was coming to the surface, but not being consciously aware that that's actually what was going on. I was just like, right. Oh, there's a sad song playing, or, there would be always some sort of reason maybe. Mm-hmm. And then I think really what instigated it for me was getting into a relationship because I was being triggered quite a lot. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to remember if I went to marriage counselling or counselling by myself first, but I think there was couples counselling because we weren't married maybe. I can't recall. Maybe I was at couples counselling first and then decided to go on this path and this journey for myself because it became more and more apparent that there were things that were happening that I wasn't even kind of maybe conscious of. So my husband or partner would say to me, he would say something to me and I actually didn't even hear it. It was like my little girl had shut down my ears when a man would ask me to do something. I wasn't aware that I was doing that. It was just a complete self-protect thing that was happening. So I was like, okay, well, I need to go and, dive into what's going on. Another thing that springs to mind, I remember years ago going to see this medium psychic lady in Sydney. And she said to me, you've got like this big door inside you, and it's got many padlocks on it. And like nobody is going to penetrate behind that door because that is where there's a lot of stuff stored and you don't want to go there. And I was like, what's she talking about? Like, well, I put it to one side and maybe not simplified it. I just did what I needed to do to get on, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
And I remember when she told me that, I thought, oh, and being quite surprised. And then I started trying lots of different things, like you name it, I've probably tried it. I've gone down very traditional. I've gone to like psychology, psychotherapy sessions. I
What
remember
was prompting you to do that, to go down those pathways?
I wasn't feeling good in my body. I wasn't feeling safe. I was getting triggered in my relationship. I was getting triggered at work. I was getting triggered with friends. I seemed to be sending this energetic wave out to the universe and attracting men into my sphere who would cross my boundaries. So
Mm.
they may, instead of kissing me on the cheek, they would kiss me on the mouth. And
Mm.
I'd be like, oh, or I was sitting in a friend's house and her partner started sucking my toe, and I would just go into shock and I'd lose my voice and I didn't know what to say. And I would feel that helpless, hopeless, out of control feeling that I'm
Mm.
sure that little girl felt. And I was like, well, something's got to change. Or at work, there would be men and they would just be talking. I'd be having a meeting and they would just bring up really inappropriate stuff and they may be talking. I remember one specific scenario of a guy talking about him being in that gym that morning and how he was drying his penis in the gym. And I was like sitting there going, what has this got to do with the job that I'm in? I'd lose my voice. I just didn't know what to say.
You didn't know where
But
any of this was coming from?
I think consciously I didn't. Do you know what I
Okay.
mean? At
Yeah.
that time, I just thought, now in retrospect, there was a girl who was sending out this energetic wave, and it's like it was attracting these situations for me to go, you need to look inside.
Mm.
And it was triggering the same emotional response that little girl was having.
Mm.
But I wasn't conscious of that. And I just felt like if I look back to my teens and my 20s, there were these episodes or incidents that happened kind of over and over, and it would evoke this emotional response.
Yeah.
But I wasn't consciously aware. And I also probably just did not know how to interact with men.
Mm.
So maybe I was probably blaming myself for going, oh, well, I don't think there was a conscious, but in retrospect, it's so blatantly clear to me. And I think also as a therapist and having worked with people, it becomes kind of more obvious. But I was just so in my own story and my own life that I never was looking under the covers or
Mm.
underneath to see what was to think that, oh, if I'm having an emotional reaction, that actually could be to do with something in the past and nothing to do with what's actually going on in the present.
Yeah. So did you have a sense at all when you were going through this that there was something in the past that could be?
I knew, so I had two very specific memories of the past, but I knew the memories that I had, I knew my body was displaying more trauma when I actually got into a sexual relationship. So I knew that there was definitely more that had happened than I was aware of. And I knew that clearly there were suppressed memories, but I didn't have any desire to find out more. It was just like, let's park that and progress forward. I'm going to be fine. And I was very, happy go lucky, bubbly. But when alcohol, that's when you would see the trauma come to the surface.
Yeah.
But having lots of very interesting experience with lots of different practitioners over the years. I remember going to see a practitioner who was doing meditation with me, and they got me to hold an ice cube and got me to hold it tight. And they just said, I just want you to breathe. I started crying because it was painful, and I felt so helpless, hopeless, out of control. I wanted it to stop. So there's all this languaging coming out of me. I just wanted to stop, make it stop. Let me open my hand. I just can't, I can't do it. And he was like, you can just breathe. And suddenly the ice cube has gone to water. And I had this huge aha moment of, oh my God, like what? And it was like the power of my mind, like in those moments where I felt that overwhelm or that out of control feeling. It's like, oh my God, this too shall pass. Like the ice cube, always go back to the ice cube. It will melt, it will dissolve. It is just a moment in time. And it was probably one of the most powerful sessions that I had. I probably started the journey to work on my sexual abuse, also to make me better in my relationship so that I could know how to relate in a healthier manner, and maybe get some communication lessons, because we don't get any communication lessons at school, like
That's right.
none, or understand what attachment style I have, or understand what love language I had. I was just like, why isn't any of this taught at school? Like, it would be so beneficial to be learning that as a young kid, so that when you go into a relationship, at least you have some tools instead of being completely ill-equipped, being thrown in at the deep end. And if you are someone who didn't have a positive role model, like my parents, probably they wouldn't have had, I suppose, the healthiest of relationships from an emotional point of view. They weren't very expressive emotionally. So yeah, I don't think they were, and they weren't of an era where we had, the internet, and they had as much access to all the stuff we do now. So they did the best they could, but I probably didn't have the greatest role models for a relationship. My husband, he probably didn't have the greatest models either. So we went into a relationship and we were both scrambling, trying to find, how do we navigate this? And then from there, I started trying to have children. Well, one of my grandmothers had 18 children. I'm like, it's going to be easy. Like, fertility like runs in our family. It's so ripe. And then I couldn't get pregnant. And one of the thoughts that kind of at the very early stages of trying to get pregnant for me was, I had heard when I was much younger, and I can't remember if it was on a TV series. I don't recall who told me, but it was like, if you have been abused, there's a very strong chance you will be an abuser. And I remember at the beginning of my journey where we weren't getting pregnant, and I was going to see various different people to see if they could assist me, whether it was acupuncture to help my fertility, kahuna massages to massage my womb. I was doing hypnotherapy, you name it. I was trying lots of different stuff, but I think one of the beliefs that I needed to clear was that it was safe for me to become a parent, even though every part of my being knew this was something that I would never do. Some part of me back then heard that and went, what do you mean that I'm going to be that? Oh God, and it's not safe then, because I don't want to be that. What followed was, I think, about 5 years of IVF. So it was a long journey, which was interesting in itself, because I think in Australia, if you've gone through the IVF journey, it's very interesting. So I went to two different centers here in Australia, and it's a real mind fuck. That's the only way I can put it, because psychologically, they do not prepare you for the journey that you go on. And if I was going through a normal pregnancy and I got pregnant, sometimes I may or may not, you would or would not be aware that you're pregnant. And you may not see a photograph of your baby till you're 12 weeks. Whereas in IVF, before you do your transfers, you're seeing pictures of your embryos. Some clinics even would be referring to me as, oh, mum. And then in the transfer, you are witnessing on a TV screen live. It's almost like the moon landing. It's like, here it is. Here's your baby landing in your womb. Oh, go, mom. And then here's a picture too a concrete proof that this has happened, that your baby has taken hold in your womb, and go on home now for, I think it's 10 days, and then we'll find out if you're pregnant. But I think that system is set up to really psychologically mess up a lot of people, because I think what they should do is keep all those pictures and give them back to you at 12 weeks.
Yeah.
Because you don't need to see that on screen. You don't need to hear the words mum until you know that it's locked down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't need all of that. So I think one of the clinics offered me or my partner, one session of counseling.
Oh, wow.
But
Yeah.
we had done many cycles and many transfers. Like my son was lucky number 11 transfer.
Wow.
I would love to see some change. And maybe there has been change now, but I think it's a very, very tough process to go through. And I went to my doctor for a mental health plan. And there was one specific time I went because I had transferred twins. I got the positive pregnancy test. It was all very exciting. And then we went for the heartbeat at 6.5 weeks, and there were no heartbeats. And it was just devastation. But like I said, we'd had the go mum, and we'd a picture of each of the twins. So it was very heartbreaking. But I remember speaking to the doctor and saying, I need a mental health plan. And he said, well, we don't give these out like willy nilly, just for grief. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? And only I was an EFT practitioner at that time and was aware of you can actually get them. I fought for it.
Yeah.
And I was crying in his office going, I really need to speak to somebody who's not my friend or my husband. I need a professional to help me, because I actually know I need to go and do another cycle of this. And I need to get my head into a really good mental space.
Yeah.
And when I went to see the psychologist, I spoke to her. I remember saying, I've had this interaction with the doctor, and they were aware. They said they've had many clients go through that specific doctor and they've had the same experience. And I just thought, that's so bad for people who are, it takes a lot for people to come forward and go, there's something going on in my mind and I want to feel better. There's something going on in my life, or I have a trauma, or I have a memory and I want to feel better. So I think the IVF journey brought lots of different therapies and lots of different modalities. I did, like I said, lots of traditional. I was doing kahuna massages. I was doing past life regressions. I was doing family constellation therapy. I was doing breath work. I was doing rebirthing, kinesiology. I think I just went down a rabbit hole of, I will do whatever I need to do. If it was fix me, because on some level I felt that I was broken. I couldn't get pregnant, and then I could produce eggs, but I couldn't hold that pregnancy, or I would hold it for a couple of weeks and then I would lose the baby. I just spent hundreds and hundreds and thousands of dollars on herbs.
Wow.
And EFT was something that came into my life before I got married, so about in 2007. And I heard about it because my bridesmaid said to me, have you heard about this technique? You tap on meridian points. It's really good for depression, anxiety, addictions, physical pain, and all this list. And I thought, that just sounds like total crap. Like there's nothing out there that can help with all these things. But I was very curious, very much a seeker, wanting to learn, wanting to understand how my mind works, how people's mind works.
Yeah.
Went to a weekend seminar, felt significantly lighter. And I thought, oh, I need to go learn this. And then went on a journey to become a practitioner with no intention of doing this for other people. It was like, I'm just going to do this because if I become a practitioner, then I surely will be able to fix me and, clear up all of my stuff.
Yeah.
But then during that journey, of course, to become a practitioner, you work with other people. And then I got to see the light going on in people's eyes as I would do a session. And there's nothing more magical to witness that, to see the load become lighter, to see their perspective change, to see their perception of their life change, to just witness them leaving a little lighter, better, than more empowered, more in touch with their own inner power. than when they came in the door.
Mm.
So I left my corporate career back in 2013 and then started working at a health retreat and then also did some of my own health retreats. Did another segue into corporate briefly in the last probably 2 years and then came back to, I think I want to do my own health retreat because I knew what I liked about at the health retreats that I worked, and I knew where I felt we could make it better or what I would like if I was going to a health retreat. And having tried so many therapies over the years, what I found worked, and everyone is different, of course, and some things work for some and not others. And I think it depends where you are on your journey. But there are some therapies that I found very had a profound impact on my life. So I was like, I'd really like to incorporate them into the program and really wanted to try and, with Hinterland Health Retreat, to try and create a safe space, a haven where some people could come where even the land itself is healing. And we would have a team of practitioners who are magicians that could work their magic over a 28-day period. And we'd have a comprehensive aftercare that they could go back and we could, try and help them be the best version of themselves. Understanding, of course, that life happens and there will be ups and downs, but hopefully helping them be more resilient to navigate those ups and downs without their old behaviors, patterns arising.
Mm.
So that is the little bit of the history and the why and the where and why we're here now.
Do you feel that you've fully processed the trauma that's happened in your life and identified all the patterns and maladaptive, I guess, behaviors that may have flowed from that, and then sort of integrated all of that into your life in a way where you're not so much continually re-traumatized or limited from that experience?
There's a part of me that feels like I would answer, I'm probably 90% worked through all that. I'm currently doing EMDR because I thought it's very similar to EFT and it's for trauma. So I started that a couple of years ago and I thought, well, let's work through all of my memories with EMDR to be sure, to make sure that I've truly got everything. But I suppose there's that part of me there. I know that there are memories that I've suppressed. I have no memory, but my body has a memory. So I think there's always that part of me going, but have you then truly addressed everything? Or when you've worked through the EMDR, will others come to the surface or will something else, like the onion layer, will something else bubble up? So that's why I say 90, because while I feel like a lot of the stuff, like even an EMDR, I feel like most of it is gone.
Yeah.
There are threads or little bits that are still there.
Yeah.
But nothing to the profound impact it used to have on my
And
behavior.
I think we're always a work in progress, really.
Totally, I would agree.
But it's learning how to, I guess, live your life in a really functional, empowering and forward direction, in being able to create what it is that you want to do, which, look what you've created out of that journey, and to transform it into something really productive, life affirming almost,
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily have to take away from us. It can transform us. We can take experiences, any experience, and we can either allow it to completely deplete us or go the other way with it and empower us.
Yeah, I agree. If I think about old Jackie, she was very emotional.
Right.
I was very in touch with my emotions, shall we say, but I was, watching the sad movie, I was always crying. There was just a lot of sadness, and I'm still in touch with my emotions, but I'm just not, there's not that need to cry as much. There's not that well of sadness. I'm not getting triggered as I used to. I would be triggered a lot now in hindsight, but I think then I didn't realize, if that makes sense, that I was being triggered necessarily. Yeah, I'm still a work in progress, but I feel I have cleared a lot of it. And I think even in this retreat and me kind of coming out and telling my story, and I was telling my story to my clients for years. I just haven't been telling my story out loud, I
Yeah.
suppose. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I've been telling friends, but this feels, I think, on some level, also part of the healing,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
to say it in sessions is, and say it to friends one on one is
Mm.
one thing. To say it out loud and go, oh, hey, yeah, oh, that was me too. Or,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and it feels fine to say it.
And I noticed when we were talking the other day about this, yeah, just how you weren't reactive in any way, shape, or form. The conversation was able to flow, and we were saying, isn't this such a tragedy in some way that we don't have conversations about whatever's going on for us in our lives? And both of us having lost a friend, husband to suicide just in the last month. And in both cases, either husband never opened up to anyone to have a therapeutic conversation or to seek any sort of help with that.
Yeah, I'm not sure in relation to that husband. I don't know if he did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I
I'm
know
not.
in the one that we lost, he not
They didn't.
did
Yeah.
not see anyone, and that, removing that stigma is just so important.
Like for me, being back home, I was in a small town, and everybody knew everybody's name, and there was a lot of shame, to associated with the thoughts of me even saying that, like,
Yeah,
and what would people think of me? I had a huge thing about
yeah,
that for many years. Now I'm in my 40s. I'm like, yeah, right, whatever. I'm just like,
mm,
you either like me or you don't. But I also had this realization. I was thinking about chatting to you today, and I had this kind of moment that I was thinking when I'm not sure what age, I think it was about 8 or 9. I made a decision that I was changing my name. So my name is Jacqueline at home. Like all of my family call me Jacqueline. And I was like, I don't want to be called that anymore. And I
yeah,
started calling myself Jackie.
yeah.
And I just had a thought this morning of, wow, was that my delineation
Mm,
between I I don't want to be associated with Jacqueline because Jacqueline is the
mm,
sexually abused, traumatized girl. I'm now Jackie. I was the social butterfly, and it was on some level maybe that reinvention of self. And part of all that journey over the years, I remember going to see a kinesiologist, and it must have been coming up because I think it came up in any session I went to usually, but it came up and she said, it was a Saturday. And I remember she said, I want you to go home and I want you to spend the afternoon with little Jacqueline. And I was like, huh? And she goes, I want you to have a bath. Imagine you're playing with ducks in the bath, or play Ring Ring of Rosies in your mind. Like, do all of those things and just spend time with her. She is craving your attention so desperately. And I remember I went home and I thought, oh my God, if my husband comes back, he'll think I'm mental. But I remember, and it was probably 2 hours of like, I'm okay, I'm going to do this. I'm actually going to spend quality time with her. And the shift in my body and my mind was huge. I kind of really realized how I had, on some level, become her abuser because I
mm.
had ignored her cries for help
Yeah,
for years.
yeah,
She was trying to get my attention. She was trying to let me know she was in pain. She was trying to let me
yeah.
know she was hurt. And I did not want to hear from her. I did not want to talk to her. I
Mm,
actually didn't want to have anything to do with her. And part of my therapy over the years was forgiving her because,
yeah,
on some level, I blamed her. I felt it was her fault, which of course it wasn't.
yeah,
But
yeah.
and because the incidents happened more than once, it was just like, also, oh yeah, well, you're stupid because you went
Mm,
there again. And if you
mm,
hadn't have gone there again, it wouldn't have happened.
yeah,
So having to work through really forgiving that little girl and be open to spending time with her, because some part of me actually had really disliked her.
yeah.
Was
Alienated
really,
her almost by the
oh
sound of
yeah,
it.
I did. I hated her.
Yeah.
I didn't like her. And I remember seeing this picture of me from when I was a child. And, it was like we went to the professional photographers in town, and I got in my best, Sunday dress, and I had my long blonde hair and lovely red sandals and my blue and white dress. And, I looked very pretty, and I didn't know how to smile. I
Mm,
remember the photographer going, smile. And I was like, couldn't. didn't know how to produce that facial expression at all. Following doing that inner child, hanging out with her and spending time, like it wasn't done and dusted in one day. Like it takes time.
Yeah.
But I did recognize a shift. I did recognize there was more empathy towards her. I did kind of go, actually, wasn't her fault, and there was less anger and hatred, and there was definitely signs of kindness, but it took quite a few more sessions to work through all of that and let all that go and get to a point of acceptance and love for her.
The nurturing aspect of her.
Nurturing, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that also kind of ties into getting pregnant, because if that's all going on, how would I ever have held a child in my womb when I hated my inner child?
Yeah, wow.
There was a session I went to many years ago. I think it was Kahuna, and the lady was quite intuitive, and she was like, "Oh, I'm just picking up, you're burnt at the stake many, many times." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And she rang me the next day saying, "Oh, are you feeling okay today?" I said, "Yeah, I felt great." She felt a lot of blockages kind of in my womb and a lot of stagnant energy. And I remember crying on the table, and there was just lots of emotional releasing and I think physical releasing from my body. But she said after I left, she was cleansing the room with a candle and she walked out, and the candle ended up exploding and the whole room caught fire. And I said, well, that clearly, you did say I was burned at the stake. There was clearly a lot of fire in me. There have been these experiences, I think, through my therapeutic journey, which have been really interesting, to almost displays of what was being stored in my body.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And the power of that. Like, it's like, oh my God, not that I set the room, but it was almost like the energy that was in me almost set the room on fire.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I think reconnecting to that little girl, being kind to her, actually liking her. And
Well, it's almost like you've saved her. You say you were able to save yourself.
yes,
that was part of that journey.
I think in EFT, like a beautiful technique that can be done is re-imprinting the memory. So whatever memories I had, I was re-imprinting these beautiful memories, doing magical things that, that little girl would have loved to be doing instead.
Yeah.
And that also, you could see that mentally, I see the change in her face, the load lightening, her face going from scared to, smiling. Yeah, it was quite a magical experience. All of those added up to getting to the point of getting pregnant, staying pregnant, holding the pregnancy, and finally becoming a mum. So it was a long, long road. I was the geriatric mom. I was 40 when I gave birth to my son. And I remember the staff in the hospital, there's the joke, if you're 40 or over, you're geriatric. And I was like, oh, I finally got there.
Yeah. What a therapeutic process that had been then.
Hugely. It's just interesting how life plays out. And was probably one of the last girls in my class to get my period. And I went into perimenopause as soon as I had my son.
Yeah, right.
So there was a part of me still, even when I had my son, that it's not safe to be, I would classify that as the woman, not that you're not a woman after, but I remember going to the doctor when I was 41 and he told me I was in perimenopause. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
But then when I did speak to my mum, I was like, when did you go into menopause, mum? Like, she goes, oh, I don't remember. I said, no, but were you like in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, your 60s? She goes, oh, I was about 40, 41, 42. It's like, that would have been really helpful to know, but it's not something that, again, her generation, it's not something that they spoke about.
Yeah.
But I also wonder, is it a combination of so many years of IVF hormones, or is it something to do with the trauma that was there, still riding that wave of it wasn't safe? I'm very proud of my little girl.
Yeah.
I just think the skills that she had, very resilient.
Yeah. And perhaps it's turned around to be a bit of admiration for her, of how she
huge admiration, yeah.
adapted to get through that.
Yeah. Because I've been back home to Ireland in June And I think always when you go back home, it's that dynamic of, being back with family and your old friends and learning a little bit more about yourself. But because you're the adult going back and seeing like how all these dynamics worked. And it really brought up for me how when I was very, very young, well, I was not very good at being social. I was excruciatingly shy, like excruciatingly shy. You wouldn't have got one word out of me. I couldn't even say what my name was. I would always hide behind my mum's skirt or dress. I was always trying to be invisible. I was very good at that. And I think about destiny and how, sliding doors almost. I think a real point of where my life took a different turn was I had these neighbors that moved in next door to me, and they were from England, which is, it wasn't any Irish neighbors. It was somebody from across the water, and they had two girls and a boy, and the two girls were older than me, 1 and 2 years older than me. And I remember hiding behind my wall, and they saw me, and they would be like, come on over here and play with us. And I'd say it probably took them a week to extract me from that wall. And then slowly I was playing with them. And the next minute I know I'm putting on like a play for their grandparents. And it was like the extraction of Jackie. And what a psychologist actually had said to me is, well, they actually provided a template to you on how to communicate. My mum probably had, my brother, one of my brothers is autistic. I think my mum also probably has some autism, which I would have always said she was very shy and socially awkward, but actually that's symbolic of autism.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think they gave me a template on how to communicate and really brought me out of my shell.
Yeah.
And from there, I just wanted to get out of my town and out of Ireland. I wanted to go break free and, see the world and experience new things. But I think, again, the true part of that was my spirit knew to heal, I needed to go far away. I needed to be away from everyone and everything and any triggers so that I could actually really work on me. Then I can go back to there and see if there's anything left. You know what I mean? Which is really interesting.
And was there anything left?
No. And that's been like that for a while. I haven't had a trigger back in Ireland in many, many years, which has been great. But when I get one, it's like back over, I've got one. But nothing has come up for a really long time, which has been really nice.
Yeah. Is that what you're wanting to give people through opening up this health retreat, to give them themselves back again?
Reconnected to their little child, because I was volunteering at a rehabilitation in Hawaii called Habilitat. And they have a 3-year program, and 85% of the clients there are transferred from the prison system. And I think when you walked in, you could be very intimidated. They're very a lot of the guys are very broad, muscular, tattoos everywhere. They're people you probably wouldn't want to meet in a dark lane. But when you would get one-on-one with every single one of them, who was sitting in front of you was just a little boy or a little girl.
Yeah.
And they just had a sad story to tell. And sometimes they weren't aware. They were like, no, I had a great childhood. Everything's good. But it could be they lost their teddy or they lost a pet when they were younger. They'd completely forgotten it. And it was very traumatizing at the time. But as an adult, we've just oversimplified it.
Yeah.
So I think that was a really big experience for me, because it really gave me insight into who is in prison.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hadn't really thought about that before. Is that the right solution? Is there something else we could be doing to ultimately, at the end of the day, it's about reconnection to self, reconnection to their little boy or their little girl, and making them feel safe.
I was just talking to a lady at work yesterday, and she came across a file, and it was a little boy that she wanted to adopt, and he was in jail, and he had been terribly neglected by his parents, and she wanted to take him on. She knew one of his parents and could see how terribly neglected he was, and then eventually she thwarted that, and he never did get the refuge that he needed and the nurturing. And so he submitted to a life of crime and a lot of dysfunction, And he was in the process of actually suing his parents for the neglect and the way basically his life had turned out. Yeah, which is a very interesting concept. I don't know if that's been successfully done here in Australia. Interesting precedent to set if he is successful, but we are the result of our own learned conditioned environment, and so is he. I guess people don't really understand that they can choose differently, as an independent, rational thinking adult. And unfortunately, people don't think something's holding them back from seeking that help, from transforming that into something else, something way more productive than a life in prison. Yeah.
I just remember my aunt saying to me, she was studying counselling when I was a teenager, and she said to me, just know you're going to marry your father. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? She goes, you will marry your father. I was like, and then I married my husband. But I think my understanding of that, and then what it actually means is, I think what you marry is someone who is the perfect match for you, who will unconsciously bring up your stuff for you.
Absolutely.
For you to heal.
Yeah.
And he's nothing like my father, but there are elements of him that, like, my dad probably wasn't very emotional, and my husband would be, well, he's emotional, but there's some little parallels. But I think it's more that unconsciously we go through life and we attract these people in and these situations in that are there to trigger us and to help us heal.
I think so. I think it's, the whole concept of Groundhog Day, where, we're not learning the lessons we need to learn in order to move on. And so we'll keep attracting them until, and I think it's a very deep subconscious thing that we're not aware of. And so many people get trapped in these patterns that show up in their life, whether it's this type of person that they keep attracting. It comes up in many different ways, but I think until we resolve that and process it and integrate it into our lives, it's only then that we can be truly free of it and then move on to these are the little signs that, let's delve into that. Let's go and see if I can transform that and integrate it and heal from it and open my life up to so much more.
Yeah.
Do you feel your life has been opened up to so much more?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
I'm not grateful for the abuse, but it's because of that I went on this amazing journey to discover who I was and who I truly am, and actually get to know me and actually really like who I am, because I think for a long time I didn't. But I think a lot of people, when you're in your teens and your early 20s, a lot of people struggle with potentially whether they like themselves. Whether it's, peer pressure or whatever. So for that, I'm grateful, because I went on this journey, and I don't think I would be here talking to you.
It's certainly not the first time I've heard that. I remember attending a cancer retreat with my late husband, and a lot of the cancer patients there were so thankful that they had cancer, because it took them down a journey that completely transformed them, and loving that part of their life. So it's a lovely healing process, the whole thing of it, and transformative process. And that's, I guess, having these conversations is about trying to show people just what you can do with whatever trauma that might exist in our lives. And I don't think none of us really escape from it. We won't get out of here without having our traumas, whether they be little t traumas or big T traumas. It requires the same sort of work. And I think it's that whole process of becoming more and more conscious, living lives more deliberately, intentionally, rather than at the effect of it all. It's great
Just,
stuff.
I feel like a lot of probably my earlier life was just someone had pressed the play button. I was just in react mode.
Yeah.
And I was on autopilot and I didn't even realize. Whereas now, I try to be more present and more conscious and more intentional in my actions and my thoughts, and be more aware of what my thoughts are, rather than, I suppose, maybe in the past I might have tried to just put them to one, like, oh, no, we won't deal with that next, Yeah.
Do you feel you've taken, I guess, your mind and this consciousness, have you taken it to the next level, I guess, in truly being a conscious co-creator, so to speak, knowing you can create your life to be how you would like it, or the experience of it. You sort of stepped into that sort of power with it?
I've kind of had experiences over the years. Even with 19 years ago, I wrote a book on baby sign language.
Mm.
And I had this experience of, I think I'm going to write a book on baby sign language. And, I think I'll call a deaf charity and ask them to endorse it. I had only learned sign language in Sydney, so I would know New South Wales based signs. And I know that there's stiff variations, and I only pick the easiest sign for a child to reproduce. So I'll get a charity to help me select the easiest sign. I booked a call with Deaf Children Australia, and they agreed to meet me, I think, the following week. And I flew up to Brisbane to meet them, and I met the CEO and another staff member. And by the end of the meeting, they had agreed to endorse my book.
Yeah,
And I was
right.
like, okay, now I'm going to write a book. So I've had lots of experiences where I've had a thought and then suddenly manifests. I never kind of went, how did I do that?
Yeah,
So I
right.
have had experiences over the years of, I was aware that I can be a magician.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I can create good, but I can also create bad.
Oh, absolutely. That's the world of
You know,
relativity we live in.
totally. I think the whole journey, again, is also about stepping out of victimhood, stepping
Yeah,
into empowerment.
absolutely. That's it.
And in my sessions with clients, I always use this analogy of that they're very like Harry Potter. So their name's Jackie. I will say, oh, I'm Jackie Potter. It will always cause a shift in their state because they're
Mm,
like, she just called me Jackie Potter. And they'll start laughing. So even if they were in sadness, it's a really good disruptor to
yeah.
change their state. I did have one reaction once where this guy goes, I am not that little whatever. And I was like, what's wrong with Harry Potter? And he had a real issue with him. He wanted to be called Mr. Copperfield instead, which is, like, okay, well, note to
The
self,
real deal.
somebody who has a problem with Harry Potter, and say that we are magicians. And I say that in
Mm.
my session.
Yeah.
It's about us using our power for good, because a lot of the time we're using it unconsciously or bad, but not for great things. So imagine what we could do.
Yeah.
Imagine what we could do if we were creating for good.
Yeah. And it does have that connotation of magician like when I say co-creator, because you can really intentionally, deliberately create an experience of something. That's a whole other level beyond the healing. There's so much more that
Yeah.
awaits. It's exciting stuff.
Another co-creation that springs to mind. So when we're on this journey of trying to get pregnant, we just had a miscarriage, and I had this brainwave. We're going to go to India. We should go to India and see a guru. And I said it to my husband. He was like, we are not going to India to see a guru. I was like, I think they could help. And clearly, some part of me sent out to the universe, we are going to go to India. And about a week later, I had an email through my website from an Indian lady going, can I host you in India? And I thought, what? And I sent a message back and I said, no, I can do all my sessions online. Like, you don't need to host me. And she goes, can you give me your number? And I gave her my number, and it was like 9:30 at night. So I said, here's my number. Why don't you call me tomorrow? But my phone started ringing immediately, and I picked it up, and it was this lady, and she said, when can you come to India? And I was like, no, I don't need to come. I can do the session. No, no, no. I would like to host you. And then I had the thoughts of, oh, we don't know who she is. So, and then I said, oh, I only travel with my husband, which is totally untrue. But I thought, I wanted to make sure, well, if I'm going to die, he can come with me. And within a week, it was all booked that I was going to India. That to me, again, was this Jackie the magician. It was
Yeah.
like, how did that happen?
Mm.
And we were staying in penthouses, and I was doing tapping on the chiefs of police and entrepreneurs and politicians in India. It was the most surreal, bizarre,
Yeah.
incredible experience of my life, with my own personal mosquito swatter as I did sessions.
Right.
Very bizarre. I had a mosquito flying around. I remember doing this with my hand, and the lady that I was doing the session on said, no, 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 I'll get my maid to come in. And she just sat there like swatting. Anyway, well, there's a lot of people who don't realize that you have this ability to create what you actually want.
Yeah. And that's why I alluded to that, because I guess the way you've set up the Hinterland Health Retreat, there's a lot of healing there that takes place when you look at the services that you're providing and the conditions that you're treating. But it's so much more than that. That's, after you've healed from that, then it's like, where do you want to take your life?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think having tools that you can go home with, that you can use yourself, like empowering the individual to not have a reliance on me or a member of staff. Like, we have all the answers.
Yeah, absolutely. Already
people
there.
Are facilitators. Like any of the time I've worked with people, I am just facilitating them to get to that answer or to get to that new state. They are the magicians at work. Hinterland Health Retreat, truly from my heart, is a place where people can come. And the goal is, I don't want to have a facility that's a revolving door. I don't want to, I want this to be an investment in self. And you go out and you lead the most beautiful life, that you're creating magical things and riding those waves,
learning how to ride the waves. Yeah.
Learning how to ride the wave. You'll get back on the board faster because you'll have the tools, or you'll get to shore faster, or get eaten by a shark. I think that's really, really important. So,
yeah, that's wonderful. So where do people go to have a look and find out more about what you do there?
You can go to www.hinterlandhealthretreat.com, and it's got lots of information on our 28-day program. We currently have a waiting list on the website, so you can sign up, because we're not open till November 2024. So if people want to sign up to the wait list, you get 20% off. But yeah, feel free to reach out if anybody has any questions or would like to know more.
Oh, that's great. And just lovely to hear your amazing transformative story. We just want to get that message out that this is available to everyone in terms of healing and then transforming their life completely. It truly is amazing work. So thank you very much for sharing that story.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. We'll speak soon.
Have a lovely day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.